All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm sure that we'll have a few more people joining us shortly. But I do want to get started since we only have an hour together, and it's very exciting that this is our first justice briefing for the Social Justice and Human Rights Program. If I have not had a chance to meet you yet, virtually, of course, or perhaps in person, I'm Tricia Hepner. I am the new director of the MA program in Social Justice and Human Rights, and I'm also brand new to ASU. So I am very excited to bring a new initiative to our SJHR community that we are calling Justice Briefings. So let me just quickly say a couple of things. The first is about the Justice Briefings. So Justice Briefings are basically brown bags, just a more interesting way of thinking about a brown bag event. So if you do happen to have your lunch with you, feel free to eat on camera or off camera. It's intended to be informal. We wanted to create a space where we could get together regularly. We're hoping monthly, so about 3 to 4 times a semester, probably around the same time and day, so Fridays around 11 a.m. To set aside this time when we could feature faculty, students in the SJHR program, alumni, and other special guests. So whether that's to share works in progress or completed research findings, to talk about internship experiences, applied projects, or topics that are relevant to the themes of the program. Justice briefings are intended to be a way to build community in the SJHR program and to learn about other new kinds of opportunities. That we have 2 more briefings planned for this semester. The one in October will feature Sandra Solis of the Puente Human Rights Movement. They are an organization working with detained and undocumented immigrants in the Phoenix area. And Sandra will talk about the work of Puente and also how to make connections between students and faculty at ASU and in SJHR who might want to work together with Puente. So that may, for example, even for an internship location or a site for thesis research or an applied project. So Sandra is very open to that collaboration, and she'll be introducing the work of Puente to us in October. And then in November, we haven't quite set the date yet, but we are looking forward to having one of our own MASJHR students, Sue Lunt, who is currently working on her thesis or her applied project. I can't remember quite what culminating experience she's doing, but she will be talking about her work. So that'll be a nice opportunity for students to hear from another student. And then beyond that, we've got ideas, but we don't have any firm plans. So if you are on this briefing, if you've joined us today and you're interested in being a presenter, you are more than welcome. And if you have any recommendations for others that you would like to see perhaps give justice briefings, then we're always open to those suggestions as well. So just feel free to reach out to me and share any ideas that you have. So it's a new initiative, so we can make it whatever we like. So we are affiliated, quite obviously, with the master's program in social justice and human rights. And for those of you who might not know much about the SJHR program, the MA program in social justice and human rights is really built around an experience. So it's an experience, an academic experience, learning about the themes and the issues and the problems and the theories associated with social justice and human rights from a range of different social science disciplinary perspectives. So it's an experience of a learning community, but it's also mentorship, it's internship experiences, it's working out in the world with various community organizations. It's also can include study abroad. So there are 3 tracks currently to the SJHR program: research, advocacy, and critical trauma studies and social work. We also offer methods training, qualitative and quantitative, as well as action research. And we prioritize, when possible, individualized instruction, reading, and conference and research opportunities under faculty mentorship, and a culminating experience for students, which can either be a research thesis or an applied project. We also have a 4+1 program for BA students that are interested in completing their master's degree in that 5th year. And we also have a brand new online MA program in SJHR. So if you're interested in knowing more about the SJHR program, I will put my email address in the chat. You're welcome to reach out to me directly, and also to New College Graduate Advising, and I'll put their email address also in the chat. So we are very privileged today to have Griselda Rivera with us, who is going to be our first featured speaker for this inaugural Justice Briefing. And I'll just do a quick bio on her. Griselda Rivera moved her family from Long Beach, California in 2005, seeking a fresh new start. In Arizona, Griselda has volunteered with nonprofit organizations such as the Maricopa CASA program as a bilingual court-appointed special advocate to speak for the best interests of abused and neglected children in the dependency court system. She holds a master's degree in social justice and human rights, a certificate in women and gender studies, and a Bachelor of Arts in social and behavioral sciences from Arizona State University, New College of Interdisciplinary Arts and Sciences. As a daughter of immigrant parents, first generation, and a post-traditional college student, Griselda's motivation to return to school was driven by her oldest daughter and the support of community resources. Working with the Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund Parent-School Partnership Program in Phoenix, Griselda hopes to bring together revolutionary leaders who will work together in developing strong relationships as the foundation of everything that she does, both professionally and personally, in order to create positive community change. Griselda's vision of social justice and true educational equity is built from community leadership and collective power. Griselda enjoys self-care through comedy, meditation, hiking, and birdwatching. And she's going to tell us a little bit more about all of those things in the course of this briefing. So whenever you're ready, Griselda, feel free to share your screen and let's get started.
Well, thank you all for being here today and willing to listen to my academic journey, both in grad school and also leading to my career working with MALDEF. Yeah, so Dr. Hepner, she pretty much said everything I was going to say. I'm a first generation college graduate. I'm post-traditional college student. I have been absent from school for 18 years. I, stayed home, raised a family, and decided at age 35 that I would go back to school. Yeah, so I've put together this brief presentation. So I am a daughter of a Mexican immigrant parent. I am Chicana, or Mexican American if you prefer to use that term. I was born and raised in California. Again, I'm first generation college graduate and post-traditional student. I'm married to my best friend. We have 3 children. If you've never heard the term Chicana, I just wanted to share a little bit about what that term means. So it was coined during the Chicano movement of the 1960s by Mexican American women who wanted to establish social, cultural, and political identities for themselves in America. So on this slide, you have a real treat because there's a picture of myself in 1993 with my Chicana friends. Chicana identity has a lot to do with our Mexican culture and heritage, and recognizing the fact that we are American and we feel a genuine affection both to the United States and to our ancestor lands. And we do want to see things improve. So that's a little bit about a Chicana identity. And the post-traditional characteristics are just, we're on a different timeline. We're adult learners. We delayed enrollment into college. We're not specifically checking off boxes. We're financially independent, or we have dependents, and we frequently balance life, work, and education, which about education is where I will start with my why. And it really started when my oldest daughter, Brianna, decided that she wanted to go to college. And, I didn't understand the college process because I had dropped out in high school. And so I didn't continue on with higher education. And
she persisted, of course, and she just was very persistent. And every time she talked about college, I could feel my stomach cringe. And because I didn't know, I was not informed, I didn't know what that looked like. And so we reached out to community resources, and they were able to really debunk the myths of uh, going to college, because I grew up in California and in the 80s and 90s, and so we never had those conversations. We lived in a underserved community, and language was a barrier for us. So we discovered that community resources really help debunk those myths of going to college and being able to afford it, by giving us access into scholarship information, FAFSA information, all the important things needed to go to college. And so we met a really good, honest uh, group of people that really cared about getting us to college, both my daughter and I, because as I saw her go through the process, I decided that I wanted to go back to school and I wanted to go on to college myself. So we ended up shifting that narrative of, people like me can't go to college, or, we don't have the cultural capital, or we don't have people that went to college in our family and our background. So, that was missing. And so we decided that we would shift that narrative together. And we learned a lot about education equity during that process, specifically speaking the language, where we did see other families who didn't speak the language, who were not informed, but the process was mostly in English. And so we did get to witness that. And we decided that, okay, we're going to do this together. And so my daughter graduated from high school in 2012. And so I graduated from an adult education program with my GED. And so we were both class of 2012. And I decided that, I would take it another step, and decided to enroll into college and get my bachelor's degree in social and behavioral science. I was magna cum laude. And then I decided that I wanted to go into this master's program. And so I did, and I was part of the 4+1 program. It was an accelerated program. And then I decided that, okay, that I wanted to really know a lot more about women and gender studies. And so I got into that program as well. So I did the master's in social justice and human rights with a certificate in women and gender studies. And so that's kind of how that began. But so if you want to turn to the grad school slide, which is thank you, Richard.
I can also, I'm sorry, I can also interrupt you for just a moment. I don't know if it's possible with your phone, but if you hold it just a little, maybe you can hold it just a little further from your face so we can see just a little bit more as we talk, if that's possible.
Yes.
Thanks.
Sorry, okay, hold on. Yeah, can you see me better? Like this. I can't see myself. So, there I am. Okay.
That's much better.
This is fun. Thank you, Dr. Hepner. I don't think everybody enjoyed watching my nose there for a minute. Okay, so about grad school. So this is like the meat of the conversation, right? We really want to know what grad school is about for those entering into the program. This is my experience. I just want to clarify that this was my experience, and this is what I encountered in grad school. There were highs and lows. But grad school really, I was really able to identify the strengths and weaknesses of like what I was capable of doing. And I realized that if I've always been very independent and kind of doing things on my own, by myself. But then grad school really pointed out that it was okay to ask for help and ask for, tutoring, going to the writing center, really identifying those weaknesses. And that was like that interdependence that I lacked, because I was always so used to doing things on my own and doing things for myself. But, it really by the time that I felt the burnout, because some students do feel burnout, I did get to see a lot of students walking around like zombies. And I realized that that was the burnout, that grad school can really suck the joy out of things with depressing reads and the subject matter of social justice and human rights, stuff that we're not used to reading. This can be very shocking, and it was very shocking for me because I consider myself a pretty positive person, and I read positive self-help books and stuff like that. So the subject matter in social justice really changed that for me. But it was something that had to be done. It's something, you have to see the dark in order to see the light. And that's kind of what I've learned from grad school. I also really learned how to navigate grad school and how to look up those resources available that ASU offers, like the Writing Center, tutoring. And I really saw, like, now that I reflect back, I really saw a transformation in how I handle things, because I did burn out. I did like stay up late, lack of sleep, lack of exercise, really wasn't taking care of myself because I was trying to juggle, kids and life and home and work and, all this other stuff that you really hit the lows. And so I just had to remind myself, not to give up and remember my why and why I started this journey. And, I really want my kids to go to college and have that information so that they can, make those choices that I wasn't able to make when I was in my, young adulthood. And so just really taking time and really identifying my strengths and weaknesses was probably what I learned the most about grad school. And I realized that nothing is perfect, and that doesn't go just for grad school, but for everything. Nothing is really perfect, and it's just how you cope with it, how you handle it. And for me, it was just keeping my eye on the trophy most of the time. It was like, okay, I'm going to get there. And along the way, I had a lot of support from just students and, from other students, from mentors outside of the institution, community mentors, community counselors. I mean, they're out here. And I know that ASU offers like counseling services. And so, there's so many services that are offered. It's just, when you're burnt out, you tend to forget, and you just need a reminder to, hey, carry yourself back up and do what you're meant to do. And so that was my grad school experience. And I'll have time for Q&A later if anyone has questions. Also, so about opportunities. So during grad school and juggling kids and family, I did reach out to volunteer. I volunteered with the Maricopa Casa program, with Child Help, with the Florence Immigrant and Refugee Rights Project, and an internship with Rosie's House. So most of my volunteer or internship positions have been around children. And so I just wanted to put this out there that, these opportunities, sometimes those internships are in the spring or in the summer, but, the fall, there's several organizations out here, especially here locally in Phoenix, that are willing to accept a volunteer to come and help with whatever cause they're trying to work with. Or, it's definitely, volunteers are not paid, but it's a very rewarding experience to work around children who have been in horrific experiences, and yet they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so that hope is there. You'll begin to see it, or I actually began to see it with the children that I worked with in the Maricopa Casa program. And I can talk more about that later. But if you'd like to go to the next slide, Richard. I can't see it. Oh, there it is. So life after grad school. So after I graduated, I actually wanted to go to law school. And so I applied to this fellowship that's with the Los Abogados Hispanic Bar Association. And I was awarded for the summer of 2019. It was a 3-month Kaplan LSAT prep course. And it was Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it was my entire summer. And I was like, I'm going to do this. This is planned. This is already planned out. I'm going to do this. I did finish the program. I graduated from that fellowship program, and I did take my LSAT September of 2019, which was very challenging for me because it was the very first digital exam, and my stress levels were up to the roof. I didn't fare very well on that exam. It was my first time. And even though I had prepped the entire summer, I still felt like I needed some more prep. So that exam is on hold right now. I'm planning to retake that exam. I'm not fond of a standardized test, but I know that it's required in order to get to law school. So I'm willing to crack the code there. And that takes a little longer time for me. So then I decided that, okay, my student loan debts are going to kick in pretty soon, 6 months after graduation, and I need to find myself a job so that I can pay my loans and be this responsible citizen. And so I reached out to an organization, MALDEF, and I just remember from like back in my youth, I remember seeing this picture of this woman to your right, Gloria Molina. And she was like she was a trailblazer. She was like the first Latina to become part of the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors. And something that it was really a historical moment because it hadn't been done for over like 100 years. So she came in, and I remember that was in the 90s sometime. And I just remember seeing myself in her for some reason. I think representation really matters when you're younger. So I looked to that woman, and as I was putting together this presentation, I just remembered that woman. That's why I reached out to MALDEF, because she was part of a case. She wasn't working with MALDEF, but she was part of a case that was addressing gerrymandering in the district where she was. And so I remember that case, and I remember MALDEF, and through the years, I've always seen the work that they've done and stuff. And so I reached out to them as a volunteer. I, for some reason, thought they were like here locally in Phoenix, and they weren't. And so I reached out as looking for a volunteer position, and, Human Resources got back to me, and she's like, no, we don't have an office in Phoenix unless you want to volunteer in Los Angeles. But we are opening a new office in Phoenix, and would you be interested? And I jumped on that opportunity. I immediately sent my resume. I sent my 5 pages of writing material and filled out the application. And so they hired me. And I was part of the process of opening up a new office here in Phoenix back in November. That was November 2019. And I would be in charge of launching this parent-school partnership program. So I was excited, and I was ready to do the work. After reading the curriculum and looking at the content, I knew this was meaningful. This was what education equity is all about. And so then I found my footing. And so here I am as program director for MALDEF. And so the next slide talks about MALDEF, and I'll be very brief. They were founded in 1968. It's a nonprofit civil rights law firm. We have 5 regional offices and our national headquarters in Los Angeles. Our parent school partnership program focuses on education, and their offices are in Los Angeles, Atlanta, and now in Phoenix. And if you'll go to the next slide, Richard, please. Thank you. So this is a timeline that I put together of what MALDEF has been doing. They have been very big advocates of immigrant families, and they've done several cases, but to shorten the time here for this presentation, I selected a few which were very important in my own personal life because, again, these anti-immigrant policies would affect my life. But I know, because my mother was an immigrant parent, that she didn't know what was going on at the time, and I didn't know what was going on at the time. But so in 1977, there was a district in Texas that wanted to charge undocumented children for public education. And the tuition cost in 1977 was $1,000. That was a lot of money to charge children for free public education. And so MALDEF sued. And 5 years later, the Supreme Court decided that yes, it's unconstitutional. And so in June of 1982, Plyler versus Doe, it was a landmark decision holding that states cannot constitutionally deny students of a free public education on account of their immigration status. It was a 5-4 vote, and MALDEF won that case. And that case is what has helped us emerge into this program of a parent-school partnership program. So it's a very important case to talk about and to inform parents about. And so then in 1994, that in California, there was Proposition 187, which was also another anti-immigrant policy that, you know, it was just like, there's so much of what we're experiencing now with so much hate towards immigrant families. And so I put these in, and if you'll go to the next slide, I paralleled it to my life. So this is, the blue is obviously MALDEF and their cases and warnings. And then there's the parallel to my life. So the Tyler School District, the one in Texas for charging undocumented students tuition, that was my birth year. That was my birth month and birth year. And then moving along to the landmark Plyler versus Doe, June of 1982, that was when I started kindergarten. And then moving on to Proposition 187 in California, that was November of 94. That's the exact month and year that I dropped out of high school. And then I looked on to Arizona with Jan Brewer's SB 1070, July 2010. And that's when I began my GED program that specific summer. And then I moved on to Proposition 200, which actually SB 1070 was that racial profiling where Sheriff Joe Arpaio was involved. And then Proposition 200 was Jan Brewer, and that was in 2012. That's actually the year that I, for the very first time, voted and was part of the voting process. And I began my college journey then, my undergrad program. And then in 2020, which is now, this is, so MALDEF has sent several warnings out to districts in the Phoenix surrounding areas, letting districts know that because of COVID, there's a lot of online forms that are being filled out. And so some of the forms specifically ask for a social security number to enroll your child in kindergarten. And so MALDEF has already jumped on that and has sent warnings, and the districts are complying. And so here I am, 2020, and I'm part of this parent school partnership program that I have not launched due to COVID. The parent school partnership is an in-person program. It's a 12-week session. And so we have my amazing team that I work with in Los Angeles and Atlanta. We've condensed our program, which is the next slide, into a virtual program to be available for immigrant families. And so part of our program is to inform the parents of their federal and state laws, their rights as parents with children in public education. We talk about the relationship that parents and teachers have, and now more than ever has COVID really highlighted how much parents and teachers need to be on the same page with the children working from home or learning from home. And then I have more information on the parent school partnership, but basically we're equipping the families with tools necessary to help their children or advocate for their children in a public K-12 education. And that's it for that. This slide is really my reflection slide. And so what grad school has taught me is just real life lessons um, of, of really what you're capable of and how you navigate things, how you negotiate yourself. um, it's really to be kind and patient with ourselves, not to wait for the right opportunity to come in. I mean, during COVID, this is probably where we're going to have to be very creative, and so we're going to go out and create really good things out there. And kindness is free. It's one of my favorite uh, things to say. And then I learned not to ever compromise my integrity, my integrity of like who I am and what I do. And also just to kind of let you know that what we learn in grad school, we will carry those traits over into our career, because there are times, especially now with COVID hitting us really hard, that I've 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 had to make the choice of getting really creative at home with my kids, at home with virtual learning, and just with my work, doing what I need to do, and working with people and establishing those relationships, and so that's kind of what I've reflected upon. And the next slide is just Dr. Hepner has put together this mentorship program, which I'm really excited about, because it was something that wasn't there before, but it is there now. And I just wish you all the best, and I hope that you all find your footing too. And so thank you, and I will take any questions now.
I'll also just interrupt real quick and say thank you, Griselda, and also let everybody know that Griselda is officially an SJHR peer mentor. So if you are a student in the program and you would like to avail yourself of more of her expertise and her experience, you can see that she has a great deal of both. And so I hope that you will reach out to her. So if you don't have a chance to get her address here from the slide and you think of it later, just reach out to me and I'm happy to connect you. But yeah, it would be wonderful to get some questions, comments, thoughts from participants for Griselda.
Oh, okay. First of all, thank you, Griselda. Thank you for sharing your time and your experiences with us. I wanted to get a little bit more about, your time within SJHR. So can you tell us, specifically about, I guess I know you did an applied project as opposed to a thesis. Could you tell us about your process of like finding your director and committee members, and then like what exactly you did for your project, and how that was like?
Yes, of course. Thank you for that question. Great question. So I took the applied project approach simply because during the course, or during the program, all of the reads and everything was like, oh, this is happening, this is so wrong. But I kept questioning, like, well, what can I do? What can I do to make this better? How can I make this social justice issue better? I needed something tangible. And so I decided to together a curriculum on how to be successful with, and it's crazy because I really focused on mentorship and on a mentorship program for students in high school. And it was mostly it was an after school program, and it's really connecting with the community, connecting with the professionals, connecting with everyone that is supposed to support the child as a whole. And so I focused on the child during my applied project curriculum. But the process was very different for me, because I wasn't sure, like, what is a committee, what is a chair member, like how many people do I need to help me get this going. And I couldn't identify with faculty at the time, because I was talking about Chicana studies, and I was focusing on immigrant children. and I was focusing on the border in Arizona. I wasn't focused on the European migration. I was focused locally, and so it was challenging because I ended up going to like the School of Humanities and Cultural Studies, and I found a Chicana faculty member that became my chairperson and became actually my mentor after. But I did knock on a few doors, and those doors weren't very welcoming at the time. And I was okay with that because I knew that it wasn't perfect, even though we're living and we're like in the social justice and human rights program. Like some doors were closed, but I was not discouraged because I knew that there was a reason why these doors were closed. It was so that I could go and look for what I needed. And not expect anything to be handed to me. And I think that was the expectation and realization that I got from grad school, that I never expected anything from anyone. It was mostly like, I'm going to go and do it, and I'm going to go and get it. I'm going to go and look for it, whether it's here in the institution or outside of the institution, because there's so many options for us. And so that's kind of like how that process went. And so I found Chicana faculty, and then I went into the Teachers College because the Teachers College would help me put together a curriculum, something that I had never done in my life. But I did have a chairperson at the Teachers College who helped me with the terminology, with what I was trying to say, with how effective this curriculum could be. And moving forward, I'm now working with the curriculum for parents. So I get to balance both a curriculum for the one I did during the applied project, and then my work curriculum, which focuses on the adults.
That actually was one of my questions I was asking Dr. Hepner, was if your chairperson had to be, within the SJHR department, or if the chair could be outside of the department. So that was just something I was wanting to know. Like, it's like, I don't know if they had to be, do they have to be a tenure, to be a chair? I just, I didn't know all the nuances.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't know how to answer that question now. But I know that my chairperson was actually also teaching SJHR materials, so maybe that's why.
I think it's a testament to my newness as the director that I don't have the answer to that question right at my fingertips, but I will make sure I find out and make that information available to our students. I would expect that there's probably quite a bit of flexibility in who can direct committees, and that it's driven really by a good match between the students' interests and the particular expertise of the faculty member. So if there's room for me to support that kind of flexibility, then you can expect that I would certainly do that. We want to be student-centered in this program and really make it about what students need and what they want, and really helping students to identify how to match their passions with the available resources, both on campus and in the community, to achieve their goals. So I think Griselda is a wonderful example of somebody who has done that a great deal on her own initiative, but hopefully faculty are also in a position to support and help students do the same.
Hi, Griselda. It's Richard, who we've been
Hi.
emailing back and forth. You said that you are a part of the 4+1 program. So with that in mind, one, could you elaborate a little bit more about what your experience was of combining your undergrad and your grad, what the pros and cons? And also in sort of a broader, what do you know now about your graduate degree program that you wish you knew when you were considering it or looking at it?
Great question. It's a pleasure to finally see your face, Richard. Yeah, so I'll start with the first question, the 4+1 program. So The pros is that you're working your senior year of your undergrad, and you're simultaneously dipping into the master's program with courses from the master's program. So eventually you would graduate a year later after your undergrad is what I was told. And it's actually what I started. But here's what happened in my experience was that I know what I'm capable of doing, but when you're juggling work, life, children, you do it. I myself experienced burnout. And so I had to remove myself from that accelerated program at the time. And so it did take me an extra year to finish my master's in social justice and human rights. So it started out very well planned out. But then life hit and burnout hit, and so it took a different course, and now I'm okay with it. At first I was not okay with it, simply because I did not like to see myself in a vulnerable position, as burnout will put you in a vulnerable position. And so that was really challenging for me at the time, because I've always been independent in everything that I do. And I started this journey of going back to school and doing a GED program, which going back to developmental math and fractions. And that was a challenge as well, but I was willing to put in the effort, and it's really, kind of taken off. But when I got to the 4+1 program, I wasn't expecting to burn out. I was not expecting to, not be able to do my work, and not be able to take care of my 3 kids. And so that wasn't expected, but it happened, and I learned a lot I learned a lot about myself, put it that way. So that was the 4+1 experience. And then the second question, I think I got to know what was missing in the program, and really that's why I'm here. So those connections that I was looking for, and actually having local community members come into our space and tell us what it's all about. Share with us those experiences. Share with us how to do outreach, because that's one thing that I missed. I didn't have the time, because I was juggling my kids' schedules, going to evening classes and being home during the day with the kids, that I didn't participate in a lot of other things that my peers were participating in, like, activism or doing outreach, or, going into the community and fighting for this social cause. And so I didn't get to do a whole lot of that. But yeah, that I think that was missing from the grad program. And that's just my personal opinion, that those local organizations that are here should be part of our space. They should be able to, community members should come in and say, hey, you know what, focus on this or focus on that, because you're going to need this when you come into the real world and you graduate from grad school, and you're looking for a job. Hey, you have to have these things kind of lined up for you. And it doesn't always work that way, but in my situation or my experience, it really helped connecting with those organizations as I volunteered. It wasn't a paid internship. It wasn't something that, it wasn't a project that I needed to do or anything like that. It was just taking that initiative to go out and meet local community members and organizations that are fighting for these causes that we're talking about theoretically.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you.
Griselda, real quick, something, especially with applied projects, we're trying to have like that and thesi available for students as examples who have been in the program, because I know a lot of us are kind of like wondering, what did past alumni, do as far as projects or thesi thesis, sorry. So would you be willing, and you can send it to me or Dr. Hepner, but would you be willing to send, you know, your project, like the curriculum, just so like we can have an example, and anyone else who might be interested in something like that, you know, just so they can see, you know, what a project would look like?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm very happy that you brought that up, because I did not publish my applied project because I missed a deadline. So again, like going back to being on your own timeline and your own deadlines, but I really needed to be mindful about things, and with life, you know, and kids and work and trying to take core classes your last semester and finish an applied project, it becomes very burdensome. And I just remember that I missed that deadline, and I was okay. I really did want to get it published because I could not find a sample of an applied project anywhere. And I knocked on many doors and no one had a sample of an applied project. And so I would be more than happy to share it with you so that you can share it with other students.
So just to pop in here briefly, I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I will say that I had a wonderful long conversation with Griselda a few weeks ago, and just learning more about her experience in the program has really sparked some ideas for me, including one that Dr. Duku just added to the chat, that we should have an archive of projects and theses. Yes, indeed. Ella and I have already begun to build that archive, and I've reached out to a number of faculty to ask if they can please share at least the names of the students that they've worked with, so we can look up their theses on ProQuest, and then also to collect examples of applied projects. We really would like to have an archive made available to other students. And then also, and these ideas actually kind of a little bit preceded my conversation with Griselda, but certainly that cinched it. I had been talking with Dr. Hita in the counseling psychology program about co-organizing a workshop on managing burnout, vicarious trauma, and PTSD when doing social justice and human rights work. That's something that I've also struggled with in my career, and I think that would be very useful. I wish I had had that when I was a graduate student. And then also another initiative, and I noted this in our little chat as well, a workshop on how to do effective outreach with community organizations and leaders, that it's really not quite appropriate if it ever was in the past, for us to simply turn up on someone's doorstep and say, I'm here to help you.
Right.
Here's my agenda. Maybe working kind of the other direction, in asking for invitations and then finding out what people's agendas are, what they need, and how we can then help in solidarity. So these are skills. These are things that we just automatically know. We have to learn them. They're skills that I'm developing. And so hoping to organize a couple of events, whether through the form of the justice briefing or through separate maybe workshop events.
Yes, I think that's great, Dr. Hepner. I just wanted, because I just remembered something as I was starting to do outreach here in Phoenix with this new program. That language that we use, I'm here to help, it's frowned upon. And I learned it the hard way because I was escorted out of the building because I wanted to help. So yeah, I think that's great. Doing a workshop on that specifically, the outreach, and really building on those relationships. And we're not here to step on anyone's toes. We're here to build. We're here for the cause. But it's really hard. And I just remember that I said, yeah, I'm here to help. Yeah, well, we didn't ask for your help. And that can be something that, you know, that will, when you do outreach, that's kind of what I have seen firsthand and witnessed. And it was an eye opener for me because, yeah, I'm not going to come in to a community to help you. I'm going to be part of your community. I need to understand what's happening in the community. So yeah, I've invested a lot of time into outreach. I've had positives, I've had negatives, but that's just how it goes. It's a roller coaster.
Hi, if I may, just a short question. I'm Nasila. I'm an international student for CGHR, And I would like to thank you for sharing your history and, in a way, taking your life in your hands and doing decisions for when the time was right for you. And I would really want to acknowledge that, because just like you, I restarted my grad school after 10 years of work experience and everything. So my question is a little bit like, in a way, Ella superseded me, because I really wanted to know more about the project side, because I've been really working a lot with projects. But also, like, what would be your suggestion for international students as we approach this new education of the Western culture? And also, if we want to really help out in the community, what would be like the best way of approaching it? Because we we haven't been raised here. We don't properly know the culture of how to approach things. So if you could just share a little bit of your knowledge, how would be the best suited. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. Great question. Yeah, culture shock is a given. I witnessed it with my mother when she, as an immigrant parent navigating these spaces. But what I learned from just witnessing my childhood and my upbringing from just looking at my mom's experience as an immigrant parent was that there are many allies out there. There are many people that are willing to give you that hand and willing to see you grow. So I would recommend that you look for your allies, but also look for your accomplices. It's really important that what is being said to you in front of your face is actually being done behind closed doors as well. Because I've learned that people will say something in your face and, oh yes, I'm all about this cause and I'm here to support you. But once the doors closed, everything changes. And so I think for me, I would recommend to just be very mindful of the people that you speak to, the people that you work with, and just know that there are people out here willing to give you a hand and not lose hope, right? Because I'm sure that you will stumble and you will knock on doors and they will close on your face, and just try your best not to be discouraged, because it can be very discouraging, but keep your eye on the trophy. Like, keep your eye on that prize, what you want to accomplish, your why. What is your why? Why are you doing this? What do you want to do with this? What do you want to do with this social justice and human rights degree? Like, what exactly do you want to do with this? And so I think it takes a lot of time to reflect. A lot of reflection goes into that process of really understanding your why, because like in my experience, it's just that, I just saw things that I grew up with. I was always around social service settings. I was a child broker, which means that I translated for my mother because she only spoke Spanish. But I navigated these spaces, and I knew that there were people that were unkind, but there were also people that were very kind. And I think if we focus on that, we keep our peace. Because that's the biggest thing, that that there's unkind people out there, but if you let them into your secret place, then everything goes down. So for me, it's just keeping that peace with everyone.
I know we got a little bit of a late start. So is there any other question? We also want to, of course, be mindful of the time as well. It's been officially an hour, but I think we could probably take maybe one more question. Griselda?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, it's Richard again. From your perspective as an adult learner, juggling family and re-entering, what was your experience re-entering a undergrad program as an adult with presumably younger classmates, things like that?
Thanks for reminding me about those times. Yeah, it was very different, but not so different, because I had a student who was also on to college. She wasn't at ASU, she was at U of A. But the language around my peers in an undergrad program was partying and drinking and doing all this stuff that I had no interest in. So I just remember those conversations before class started, and, you know, sitting next to a 20-year-old student, and here I am 35 with children and a family, and thinking, oh my gosh, like this is very different. This is very different. But I honestly, I think I just took that mother approach, and I was there to like guide these students that I was sitting next to and having conversations with. I had a lot to share, and it was very interesting because I knew my age, but I didn't look my age, so they just thought, oh, it's just another student. But yeah, I was listening to a lot of conversations that I shouldn't have been listening to while my daughter was away at college.
Okay, well, I think we are unfortunately going to have to wrap up. This was a really, really great conversation. I really want to thank you, Griselda, for, reaching out. So proactive. It's not at all surprising that to hear you talk about your whole experience, because that's the way I experienced my first interaction with you too, just reaching out and being really open. And so I hope that others here on the call will feel comfortable, other students also continuing to reach out to you and to me and to all of us as part of this community. This is what we're about. We're trying to build this solidarity and these connections amongst ourselves so we can carry that out into the world effectively. This is our laboratory for social justice and human rights. So I really appreciate everyone who took time on their Friday to do this. And we look forward to more. Don't hesitate to make suggestions if you have ideas. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone.